Hey everyone, welcome to Reality TV News Update, the place where we bring you the latest updates, fun moments, and behind-the-scenes stories you won't want to miss. The voice coach, Reba McEntire, is mourning another heartbreaking death that has tragically ripped her apart. She suffered the tragic loss of her stepson, Brandon Blackstock, in August 2025. Now, more sadness has struck her life, and it has taken hold of her. Keep reading for more details. Reba McEntire mourns another heartbreaking death. This should be a beautiful time in Reba McEntire's life, as she is still an icon in the country world. Plus, she is a fan-favorite coach on The Voice and has a successful sitcom, Happy's Place. She recently announced her engagement to longtime friend and boyfriend of 5 years, Rex Linn. The two currently share the screen on HP together and became engaged on Christmas 2024, but remained tight-lipped for personal reasons. In the summer of 2025, Reba's stepson, Brandon Blackstock, passed away from melanoma. He had battled it for 3 years and eventually succumbed to skin cancer. Now the 70-year-old is mourning another tragic death that has crippled her inside. Aside from her stepchildren from her marriage to Norval Blackstock, she also has a son, Shelby. He is a 35-year-old, happily married race car driver. But things just took a turn. Shelby and his wife Marissa suffered a miscarriage, plus Marissa's father passed, so this is a lot to handle. Of course, Reba feels horrible for her son and daughter-in-law as they are mourning. It was Marissa who spoke up and out about her pain and suffering. "I've carried more loss this year than I ever imagined I could. First my brother-in-law, then my dad, and now our little boy." She noted how her dad died, and the morning after, she learned that she was expecting her son. This was a miracle, but it was short-lived. However, Marissa held on to it for as long as she could until it was no longer. Followers immediately rallied around Reba McEntire's daughter-in-law with love and words of encouragement. They wanted her to know that they felt her pain, but that everything would be okay in due time. It will all work out. Although this was the most painful situation to add to 2025, Reba McEntire's fans were nothing but compassionate. They believed it would all work out for Shelby and Marissa Blackstock in the long run and when the time was right. Some had been in the same situation and could relate to Marissa's pain, so they wanted her to know that they understood every moment. "Holding you and Shelby in my heart and prayers, always remember that God's timing is perfect even when you can't see it. So sorry for your loss. You share your feelings so beautifully. You certainly are a strong person. I'm so sorry for your loss. Praying for you and Shelby and your family. May God wrap his arms around you." Reba McEntire awoke before dawn on a quiet Tennessee morning. The house was still, the kind of still that felt too heavy. She'd slept lightly through the night, drifting in and out of dreams that carried familiar faces and familiar voices. Some were from long ago, and some felt like yesterday. But one name kept rising again and again, like a soft echo through her heart. When her phone rang, she already knew what the call would bring. The news landed gently, but the weight of it crushed her. Another heartbreaking death. Another soul she had loved deeply, now gone from this world. She closed her eyes and pressed the phone to her chest as the silence in the room grew louder than any sound. Grief did not scream this time. It whispered. It seeped into her bones and settled there. This was not the first time grief had visited her home. Over a lifetime of music, love, and friendships, she had learned that loss does not ask for permission. It simply arrives, sometimes with warning, sometimes without. Each time it leaves a scar that never fades completely. This time, the pain felt different. Not sharper, just deeper. She moved slowly through the house that morning, coffee untouched on the counter, sunlight creeping across the floor. Every ordinary detail now felt unreal. The world outside continued as if nothing had changed. Birds sang, cars passed, life went on. But inside her heart, everything had shifted. The person she had lost was not just a name in the crowd of her long journey. This was someone who had stood beside her through hard seasons, someone who had seen her without the stage lights and without the applause. Their laughter still echoed in the rooms of her memory. Their voice still felt close enough to hear. Reba sat at the piano later that day. She did not plan to play. Her hands simply found the keys as they always did when she searched for comfort. A soft melody rose into the quiet room. Each note carried sorrow and gratitude at the same time. Grief had a strange way of blending pain with love. The tears came then, slow and steady. Not the kind that overwhelms the body, the kind that empties the soul. Memories unfolded in gentle waves, long conversations that lasted into the night, hard truths spoken with kindness, quiet moments when no words were needed at all. She remembered the way they believed in her even when she doubted herself, the way they reminded her who she was beyond the spotlight. Public life teaches you to smile through pain, to show strength even when your heart is breaking. Reba had mastered that skill over decades. But behind closed doors, she allowed herself to grieve freely. There was no audience here, only the truth. As news began to spread, friends reached out. Messages poured in, filled with sympathy and love. Each one reminded her how deeply this person had touched the lives of others too. That brought comfort and sorrow together once again. It helped to know the loss was shared. It hurt to know the world truly lost something special. She stepped outside later in the afternoon. The air was warm. The sky stretched wide and blue, the kind of sky that feels endless. It made her think of all the years ahead when this person would no longer walk beside her. The thought hollowed her chest. Time moves forward no matter how much the heart resists. There was a season, early in her career, when everything felt uncertain. The pressure was intense, the future unclear. During that season, the person she lost today had offered her steady strength. They reminded her that success does not define worth. They reminded her that kindness lasts longer than fame. That lesson had shaped her more than they ever knew. In the hours that followed, she found herself doing small, ordinary things, folding laundry, watering plants, straightening picture frames. Grief often hides inside routine. The body moves while the soul lags behind. Every ordinary task felt heavy, but also grounding. Life continued in pieces. As evening approached, she returned to the quiet of her living room. Photographs lined the shelves. Faces from every chapter of her life smiled back at her. Some had already passed on, others remained part of her present. Each image carried a story. Each story carried love and loss tightly intertwined. She stopped in front of one particular photo. It captured a moment of pure joy. No cameras, no performance, just two souls sharing a laugh. Her fingers traced the edge of the frame. The ache in her chest deepened. How could one image hold so much happiness and so much pain? Grief has no timeline, no straight line, no finish. It moves in circles and waves. Some days feel light, others feel impossible. Reba understood this all too well. She had buried parents, friends, colleagues. Each loss had taken a different shape inside her heart. This one carved its own space. That night she found it hard to sleep. The house felt too quiet again. Memory played tricks in the dark. Every sound made her think for one brief hopeful moment that she might hear their voice. That hope faded quickly, but it returned again and again like a reflex she could not control. In the days that followed, she continued her public commitments. The stage lights returned. The applause rose. From the outside, she looked the same. Strong, smiling, gracious. Few could see the weight she carried beneath every performance. Each song now carried a new layer of meaning. Lyrics about loss and love felt closer to home than ever before. Fans sensed the shift, even if they could not name it. Her voice carried something deeper, something raw. Pain has a way of sharpening emotion, of making every note more honest, every word more true. She poured her grief into her music the only way she knew how. Privately, she leaned on the people who remained. Family, close friends, those who understood the cost of loving deeply. They sat with her in silence when words failed. They let her cry when strength slipped. They reminded her that grief is not weakness. It is proof of love. There came a quiet moment one evening when she finally felt a small spark of peace. It did not erase the pain. It rested beside it. She looked up at the stars that night and whispered a goodbye she knew would never truly be final. Love does not vanish with death. It changes shape. It becomes memory. It becomes legacy. It becomes a quiet presence that never fully leaves. Another heartbreaking death had entered her story, another wound added to the long map of her life. Yet even in sadness, she felt grateful. Grateful for the years she had been given with this person, grateful for all they had taught her, grateful for the love that remained even after goodbye. Reba understood something many only learn through loss. The heart does not break to destroy us,
It breaks to make room for deeper compassion, to teach us how precious every breath is, how fragile every moment can be. As she moved forward, she carried their memory with her into every step, into every song, into every quiet morning, and every loud stage. This loss would never fade, but neither would the love that came with it. And in that balance of hurt and hope, she found the strength
Reba
to keep
McEntire
going.
stood at her window as morning light slowly filled the quiet room. The sky was pale and still, the kind of still that feels heavy on the chest. She had not slept much through the night. Sleep came in fragments and left just as quickly. Her heart already knew what her mind was trying to accept. Another heartbreaking death had entered her life. She did not cry right away. Grief sometimes begins with silence, a deep and hollow quiet that presses in from every side. She held her hands together and breathed slowly. The house around her seemed different now. The walls felt farther apart. Every familiar corner held a memory that felt too close. This loss did not come as a shock, yet it still felt unreal. The person she had lost had been part of her world for many years. They had shared laughter and stories and long talks during hard seasons. They had seen her when she was tired and uncertain, and when she was strong and confident. Their presence had been steady and warm. She moved through the kitchen with slow, careful steps. The floor was cold beneath her feet. She poured coffee and watched the steam rise, but she did not take a sip. Her thoughts drifted back through time, back to the first day they met, back to moments that once felt ordinary and now felt precious beyond measure. Reba had known loss before. It had shaped her life in many ways. Each time it came, it took a different form. Sometimes it arrived like a storm, sometimes like a quiet shadow. This time it felt like a weight resting gently but firmly on her heart that refused to lift. As the day unfolded, messages began to reach her. Words of sympathy and care came from every direction. Each note carried kindness and love. Each one also reminded her again that the loss was real, that the world had truly said goodbye to someone who mattered. She found comfort in the quiet hours between those messages. In those moments, she allowed her feelings to move freely without restraint. Tears came slowly, not in a flood, just steady drops that released some of the pressure inside her chest. She let them fall without shame. Later, she sat at the piano in the corner of the room. Music had always been her refuge. Her hands hovered above the keys as if waiting for permission to begin. When she finally played, the notes came out soft and trembling. The melody carried sorrow but also gratitude. Each sound felt like a whisper meant for someone far beyond the room. Memory after memory surfaced as the music flowed. She remembered jokes shared in quiet moments. She remembered advice given at just the right time. She remembered the way this person believed in her even when she struggled to believe in herself. Their influence had been woven into her life in countless unseen ways. The sun climbed higher outside the window. Light spilled across the floor and moved slowly across the furniture. The world continued in its steady rhythm. Time showed no sign of slowing for grief. That truth always felt cruel. In the early afternoon, she stepped outside into the warm air. The sky stretched wide and clear. She stood beneath it and felt small, yet strangely supported. The wind moved gently across the land. It felt like a quiet reminder that change never truly stops. She walked for a while without any clear direction. Each step helped ease the tension in her body. Grief lived not only in the heart, but also in the muscles and bones. Movement helped carry some of it away. As she walked, she thought about the many seasons of her life, the early years full of uncertainty, the rise of her career, the long road filled with triumph and disappointment and everything between. Through it all, some people came and went, others stayed. The one she had just lost had stayed through many chapters. In the late afternoon, she returned home and rested on the couch. The exhaustion of grief began to settle in. Loss drains energy in a way nothing else can. Even breathing sometimes feels like work. She drifted in and out of rest. In her half-awake mind, she imagined conversations she wished she could still have. Words left unsaid, gratitude never fully expressed. Regrets always find space in grief, even when love was strong. As evening came, she prepared a simple meal. She ate without much thought. Each bite tasted distant, yet she knew she needed the strength. Life asked that of her, even now. When darkness fell, she lit a small lamp and sat alone in the quiet room. Shadows moved gently along the walls. The silence returned once more. It was deeper than it had been in the morning, but it was not as sharp. Pain had begun its slow shift into something heavier and steadier. She picked up a photograph and studied it for a long time. It showed a moment of happiness that could never be repeated in the same way again. She did not smile at it. She simply held it and let the memory wash over her. That night, sleep came easier than she expected. Grief had worn her down. In her half-awake mind, she imagined conversations she wished she could still have, words left unsaid, gratitude never fully expressed. Regrets always find space in grief, even when love was strong. In the days that followed, she returned to her public life. The stage lights welcomed her once again. The audience greeted her with warmth and applause. From the outside, she looked unchanged. Inside, she carried a quiet ache that few could see. Each song felt different now. Lyrics held new meaning. Every word about loss and endurance struck deeper. Her voice carried more weight. The audience felt it and responded in silence and tears and long-standing applause. Between performances, she returned to her private world of remembrance. Some days felt heavier than others. Some moments surprised her with unexpected peace. Grief moved like waves, rising and falling without warning. She leaned on those closest to her. They reminded her that she did not have to carry everything alone. They listened when she wanted to speak and stayed quiet when words felt impossible. Their support became a bridge she crossed again and again. Late one night, she stood outside and looked up at the stars. The sky felt endless. She whispered a farewell into the dark. It was not a final goodbye, just a soft acknowledgement of love that continued beyond absence. Another heartbreaking death had marked her life. Another chapter of sorrow had been added to the long story of her journey. Yet woven into that sorrow was a deep gratitude for all that had been shared. Reba understood that love does not end with loss. It changes shape. It becomes memory and influence and quiet guidance. It remains in every lesson learned and every kindness passed on. As she moved forward, she carried that love with her into every song and every quiet morning and every step she took into the future. The pain would stay in some form, so would the strength. And in that balance of sorrow and gratitude, she continued to walk forward with grace.